Hey, I'm Nicholas from Ratings.com. Today we'll be doing a review of the Dell G2724D. It's a budget gaming monitor that's newer than the popular S2721DGF. It's part of Dell's standard gaming lineup, which is separate from their Alienware lineup that includes a similar AW2724DM. That said, this monitor is only available in this 27-inch size. It has everything you'd expect to find in a budget gaming monitor, like FreeSync, G-Sync compatibility, a 165Hz refresh rate, and a 1440p resolution. Overall, it's an excellent gaming monitor that you should definitely consider if you want a low-cost option. Let's look at its design before we get into the gaming performance. It's very much on brand with other entry-level Dell monitors. It has a plastic body with some horizontal lines on the back. It's fairly well built, but the part where the stand attaches to the monitor feels flimsy. It looks like you'll pull the monitor right off when you tilt it back, but don't worry, it stays attached to the stand and it won't come off. In terms of ergonomics, it offers all kinds of adjustments. You can easily place it in many different ways, like rotating it into portrait mode if you want. There's also a cutout in the stand to put wires through for basic cable management. While looking at the back of the monitor, let's take a peek at the inputs. They're all underneath the back housing, so they can be difficult to access with the stand on. Unfortunately, it has a very limited selection of inputs, with only 2 DisplayPort 1.4 inputs and 1 HDMI 2.0 port. Of course, it has a power input, but you don't get any USB ports or an audio jack. It is disappointing, but that's pretty much what you have to expect for a basic monitor. Okay, now let's talk about the fun stuff, the gaming performance. You can reach the monitor's max refresh rate over a DisplayPort connection, but it's limited to a max of 144Hz over HDMI. It supports all common VRR formats like FreeSync, G-Sync, and even HDMI Forum VRR. This means it reduces screen tearing with any type of graphics card or gaming console. One of the main advantages of this monitor is its incredible motion handling. It has a fast response time at any refresh rate, so motion looks smooth without much blur. It offers 3 overdrive settings: fast, super fast, and extreme. They're all pretty similar at higher refresh rates with VRR enabled, but the super fast and extreme settings have some overshoot at lower refresh rates. So if you want a setting to use at any refresh rate, fast is the best option. Like some other Dell monitors, the overdrive settings perform differently with VRR on or off. That's the same with this monitor, but you'll only notice this difference with fixed 165Hz signals. With VRR turned off, the super fast and extreme settings have way more overshoot than they have with VRR on. However, the fast setting is similar with VRR on or off, which is why it's the best setting to use with any type of game or refresh rate. Moving on to the input lag, it stays very low at any refresh rate. This results in a responsive feel, and you won't be disadvantaged when gaming. Even though this is an entry-level monitor, it has a few different features to enhance your gaming experience. There are different crosshairs available, like night and chroma modes, that make it easier to see opponents in games. However, the monitor doesn't have a backlight strobing feature to reduce persistence blur with fast-moving objects. Although this monitor is ideal for PC gaming, it's also good for console gaming. It works very well with both the PS5 and Xbox Series X because it has a console mode setting. This actually downscales 4K images, which results in a slightly more detailed picture than native 1440p. However, because it doesn't support HDMI 2.1 bandwidth, it's limited to a 60Hz refresh rate with 4K signals, so you'll need a lower resolution if you want a higher refresh rate. Unlike many other 1440p monitors, it actually supports HDMI Forum VRR, which works with the PS5. Some people in our discussions asked why it supports HDMI Forum VRR and not HDMI 2.1 bandwidth. Even though HDMI Forum VRR is a feature of HDMI 2.1, it doesn't require extra bandwidth, so you could still have it on an HDMI 2.0 monitor, which is the case here. While it's excellent for gaming, you don't get a good gaming experience without great picture quality. Luckily, it offers that, especially in SDR. It has a very accurate sRGB mode, so images look lifelike without any calibration. While this mode is meant for content creators, it doesn't actually lock out any gaming settings like on other monitors, so you could still use it while gaming if that's what you prefer. It performs really well if you want to game with it in a bright room, as it gets very bright and has good reflection handling. This means glare isn't an issue in most bright rooms, but you'll have problems seeing the screen if you have it opposite a bright window with direct sunlight. Unfortunately, it looks worse in dark rooms due to its low contrast ratio. While it's better than most IPS displays, blacks still look gray in the dark, and there's some backlight bleed in dark scenes. The monitor does have a local dimming feature that's always on in HDR, but it's limited to 8 zones. It's pretty bad at improving the contrast, and there's a ton of blooming whenever there's a bright object on a dark background. Because it's always locked on in HDR, it actually worsens the picture quality. Its HDR performance is limited anyways, because it has low HDR peak brightness, and the EOTF has a very slow roll-off, so it doesn't let highlights get the brightest they can. It also has a limited color gamut and color volume, meaning it can't display colors as the creator intended, so everything looks dull and muted. Of course, you can't expect anything special for a budget monitor in HDR, so it's better for SDR gaming anyways. Besides its gaming performance, it's also important to consider other things like its office performance if you want something versatile. Luckily, it's still great for working, as its 1440p resolution helps result in good text clarity. It also has wide viewing angles that keep the image consistent from the sides, which is ideal if you need to share your screen with someone next to you. The fantastic ergonomics also help with that, so it's easy to turn the screen to show it to a coworker or client. This monitor actually comes with a USB-C to DisplayPort cable, which is very useful if you want to connect a laptop that only has USB-C. We even tried it out with a MacBook Pro, and it works well with macOS. There aren't any issues with VRR, but HDR looks washed out, which is a limitation of the monitor anyways. If you put the MacBook to sleep, windows return to their original position when waking it back up, but that isn't the case if you close the lid and open it again. Overall, while this monitor doesn't offer anything special for office work, like a KVM switch or a USB hub, it still works fine, and you could definitely use it for productivity when you aren't gaming. Okay, now this brings us to the main question. Should you buy this monitor? If you're looking for something on a budget, the quick answer is yes. It's excellent for gaming with a 165Hz refresh rate, VRR support, a quick response time, and low input lag. The 1440p resolution is also a nice touch, as many monitors in this price range are limited to 1080p. There isn't much else you can ask for an entry-level gaming monitor. It's important to keep in mind that it's hard to find through most retailers, so you'll need to buy it directly from Dell's website, which often has sales. Its biggest downside is the lack of extra features, like a USB hub. If that's important for you, the Gigabyte M27Q P is another budget option with extra perks, like a USB-C port and a KVM switch. This makes the Gigabyte even more versatile if you want something for productivity and multitasking. However, it has worse motion handling than the Dell and tends to cost just a bit more, so if you're on a tighter budget, the Dell is still the better choice. If you don't mind spending more on those extra features that this monitor doesn't have, the higher-end Alienware AW2724DM is a good alternative. It's very similar to the G2724D, with the differences coming down to features. The Alienware has an overclock to boost it up to 180Hz, and it has a USB hub. It also feels better built, which is what you have to expect for a more expensive display. But in reality, you're paying more for those added perks. All this to say, if you need a basic gaming monitor on a budget and don't care about extra features, you can't go wrong with this monitor. Well, that's all for the Dell G2724D. If you want to learn more, check out our written review on the website. The link is in the description below. Ciao.